Economic figures today show we're all getting poorer again, and we're led by the most incompetent Chancellor in history, Rachel Reeves. And there are some very big questions. She said she worked for 10 years at the Bank of England, turns out it was 5.5. Said she was an economist at the Bank of England, turns out she was in customer service. And on expenses, well, she had very big problems when she worked for a bank, and as a Member of Parliament, had a credit card taken away.
Nigel Farage isn't one to hold back, and Rachel Reeves is feeling the heat again. Another day, another political scandal, but this one's got people talking. Reeves, who's been pushing the idea that she worked at the Bank of England for a solid decade, has been caught out. Turns out it was only 5.5 years. A small slip-up? Not really. When you're handling the country's finances, honesty isn't just expected, it's everything.
Well, I'm an economist. I studied economics. I got a master's in economics from the London School of Economics, and I worked as an economist at the Bank of England.
That's one. Let's have Reeves on her CV.
Why did you say that you'd worked at the Bank of England for a decade when in fact it wasn't even 6 years, it was 5? I mean, that's exaggeration, isn't it?
Well, I worked at the Bank of England for 6 years, between 2000 and 2006. I was employed by the Bank of England, including I spent just over a year at the British Embassy working in the economics section there, supporting the government and the bank.
Why did you say it was a decade?
Well, I think it's one interview. I worked at the Bank of England for 6 years. I worked for then at Halifax Bank of Scotland, I think for 3 years after that. I became an MP when I was 31. But I think in the end, people want to judge me on the job that I'm doing today as Chancellor of the Exchequer. I'm qualified to do this job, but in the end, people are going to judge me. Am I growing the economy? Am I improving their living standards? And I'm determined to do just that.
Farage wasted no time calling her out, pointing out the pattern of misleading statements. And this isn't the first time she's been in trouble. She's already had her parliamentary credit card taken away after racking up over £4,000 in unpaid expenses. Now she's trying to convince the public that the UK economy is growing based on a measly 0.1% increase. Farage isn't buying it, and a lot of people aren't either. The question now is, how much longer can she get away with this? With pressure mounting and trust in politicians already at rock bottom, this could be the moment that defines her career. Will she come clean, or will the cracks keep widening? One thing's for sure, Farage isn't letting this one slide.
This is something the Chancellor of the Exchequer definitely does not want you to know, which is why I'm going to share it with you. Yet again, Rachel Reeves is under fire because it appears there's a serious discrepancy in her CV, and not for the first time. This time, it appears she exaggerated how much time she spent as an economist at the Bank of England. The Chancellor's office has blamed it on an administrative error by her officials. Here's the thing which is even more disturbing. We now know via an investigation at the BBC, of all places, that when she was at HBOS, she was investigated over a fiddle in her expenses to the tune of thousands of pounds. The Treasury say she didn't know anything about the investigation, but a whistleblower knows all about it and has shared it with the BBC. So I'm asking you this, is the Chancellor of the Exchequer being straight with the public? Is she lying to us? And if she is lying to us, what else is she lying about? I'll tell you what she's lying about, in my view. The state of the economy. It's tanking, growth flatlining, interest rates edging up, business confidence collapsing. Our first woman Chancellor, and she's proven to be a complete disaster who may not be honest either.
Nigel Farage isn't just criticising Rachel Reeves for the sake of it, he's pointing out something bigger. How can the public trust a politician who bends the truth about her own career? Reeves has claimed time and time again that she spent nearly a decade working at the Bank of England. That would sound impressive if it were true. But official records tell a different story. She was there for only 5.5 years. That's almost half the time she claimed. Farage jumped on this right away, calling it out as yet another example of dishonesty in politics. If someone exaggerates their own resume, what else are they stretching the truth on? It's not just a minor mistake, it's about credibility. People expect leaders to be upfront, especially when they're in charge of economic decisions that affect millions. Farage's argument is simple. If Reeves can't even be honest about her own past, how can anyone believe what she says about the country's future?
The growth numbers have come in higher than many expected, but I'm still not satisfied with the level of growth that our economy is achieving, and that's why I am determined to go further and faster in delivering the economic growth and the improvements in living standards that our country deserves.
You say the growth figures are higher than expected, but your government promised Britain it would be the fastest growing country in the G7. 6 months in, and we're barely just growing. Today's figures are a bit of a failure, aren't they? Especially when you consider GDP per head has gone down.
It's not possible to turn around more than a decades of poor economic performance in just a few months. But we are doing what is necessary to bring stability back to the economy, reforming the economy, the planning system, regulation and pensions, to encourage investment in our economy, which is the lifeblood of a successful economy.
And then there's the issue of her financial history. Back in 2015, Reeves had her parliamentary credit card taken away after she racked up more than £4,000 in unpaid expenses. Let that sink in. A politician responsible for economic policies couldn't even keep her own spending in check. Parliament gives MPs these credit cards for work-related expenses, not for running up bills and ignoring them. It wasn't just her, other MPs got in trouble for the same thing. But the fact that Reeves was among them doesn't help her case. Farage didn't hold back. He questioned how someone with a record like that could be trusted to manage the economy. After all, financial responsibility starts with personal accountability. If she couldn't manage a single credit card, how can she be trusted with the country's budget? This isn't just about one politician's mistakes, it's about the bigger picture, trust, honesty, and whether politicians are held to the same standards as everyone else. If an ordinary person lied on a job application or failed to pay off their debts, they'd face serious consequences. So why should politicians get a free pass?
All about growth. Of course, there isn't any growth at all at the moment, and many would say that actually the national insurance rises, new employment legislation, the upping of the minimum wage pretty much guarantees that when the 1st of April comes and much of this kicks in, that we're really going to be in a tough spot. But no, the Chancellor has been off to Davos and come back a new...
Farage knows how to tap into public frustration, and this time he's got plenty to work with. Reeves is under fire, and the question remains, will she address these concerns or hope the public moves on? Either way, the damage is done, and Farage isn't letting this go. Rachel Reeves wants people to believe the UK economy is on the upswing, but her numbers tell a different story. She recently pointed to a 0.1% growth rate as proof that things are moving in the right direction. Let's be honest, that's barely a blip. It's not growth. It's stagnation with a fancy label. Nigel Farage wasted no time tearing into her claims. He called out the absurdity of celebrating such a tiny increase when people are struggling with rising costs, wages that don't keep up with inflation, and businesses facing higher taxes. A 0.1% growth rate doesn't mean the economy is thriving. It means it's crawling forward at a snail's pace, barely keeping its head above water. Farage argued that this is a direct result of poor economic management, government overreach, and policies that squeeze businesses and working-class families instead of helping them. If this is what Reeves calls progress, then the UK is in real trouble. But it gets worse. While everyday Brits are tightening their belts, prime ministers have been getting pay raises. Reeves mentioned this as if it were just a fact, but Farage took it as another sign of a political class completely disconnected from reality. How is it that government leaders can give themselves salary bumps while the public is being told to wait for slow and steady economic recovery? It's a slap in the face to people who are seeing their energy bills rise, their groceries cost more, and their paychecks stretch thinner each month.
We've got growth, it's brilliant, everything is going just swimmingly, everything's fine. Is that right?
They're very ropey numbers, very low by historic standards. Fourth quarter GDP numbers, well, GDP numbers are always subject to revision. These are preliminary numbers, fourth quarter numbers in particular. Yes, Rachel Reeves has just about avoided steering Britain into a recession within the first 6 months of Labour taking office for the first time in 14 years, but only by the skin of her teeth.
Farage's argument is clear. Real leadership means setting an example, not rewarding failure. If the economy were booming, maybe a raise wouldn't be such an issue. But with 0.1% growth, it looks like politicians are getting richer, while everyone else is being told to be patient. It feeds into a growing resentment toward those in power, MPs and ministers who seem more focused on looking after themselves than fixing the problems they were elected to solve. The big question is, how long can Reeves keep spinning weak economic figures before people stop listening? Farage knows exactly how to tap into public frustration, and with these numbers, Reeves is making his job way too easy. The cracks in her credibility keep getting bigger, and if she doesn't have a real plan to fix the economy, she might find herself running out of excuses fast.
No, listen.
You say the growth figures are higher than expected,
Yeah.
but your government promised Britain it would be the fastest growing country in the G7.
It did.
6 months in, and we're barely just growing. Today's figures are a bit of a fake.
Let's have it right. The only growth that we've seen is the MP pay rises. A lovely 2.8% pay increase, which will probably take them to around £100,000. Add their allowances and their expenses on top, they'll be earning staggering amounts of money. Basically getting the pay increase for failing. Are they not failing? Are they excelling? Not in my eyes, they're not. 0.1%. And
Nigel Farage isn't just calling out one mistake. He's painting a picture of Rachel Reeves as someone who has a habit of misleading the public. The claim about her time at the Bank of England, the suspended parliamentary credit card, and the way she's trying to spin a 0.1% economic growth as progress, it all adds up. One mistake can be excused, but when the pattern keeps repeating, it raises serious questions. Is this just political spin, or is Reeves deliberately twisting the facts to shape her image? Farage's argument is simple. Credibility matters. Politicians make promises all the time, but if the public can't trust them to be honest about their own careers, how can they trust them to run a country? Reeves has positioned herself as the person to fix the UK economy, but people are now wondering, if she's not truthful about the past, why should they believe her vision for the future?
Of pounds. The Treasury say she didn't know anything about the investigation, but a whistleblower knows all about it and has shared it with the BBC. So I'm asking you this, is the chance of the Exchequer being straight with the public, is she lying to us? And if she is lying to us, what else is she lying about? I'll tell you what she's lying about, in my view, the state of the economy. It's tanking, growth flatlining, interest rates edging up, business confidence collapsing. Our first woman Chancellor, and she's proven to be a complete disaster who may not be honest either.
And that's where the bigger issue comes in. Managing an economy isn't just about policies, it's about confidence. If businesses, investors, and the public don't trust the person in charge, nothing else matters. Farage is tapping into that doubt, arguing that Reeves is already losing credibility at a time when the UK needs strong, trustworthy leadership. Can someone with a record of bending the truth really be trusted to guide the economy out of stagnation? Or is her reputation too damaged to recover? The pressure is mounting on Rachel Reeves to explain herself. Calls for accountability are growing louder, with critics demanding she clarify the inconsistencies in her professional claims. Transparency in public office isn't optional, it's a requirement. If Reeves can provide clear answers, The damage to her reputation could be permanent. Speculation about her political future is already swirling. Will these controversies force her to step down, or will her party stand by her? With elections looming and trust in politicians at an all-time low, this scandal could hurt not just Reeves, but Labour as a whole. The stakes couldn't be higher.
Keith, it's worth saying two main points. One was made by Richard Tice earlier. In GDP per head terms, income per head, we are in recession. We've seen income per head fall now for 2 successive quarters. The third and fourth quarter of 2024, so we're in recession. The other thing in that sense, the other thing I'd say, Julia, is within these numbers, the headline number is just about okay enough to allow Rachel Reeves to try and reset the narrative and say her policies are going to work out.
Rachel Reeves is facing serious questions about her credibility, and Nigel Farage isn't letting up. From exaggerating her time at the Bank of England to dodging responsibility for past financial mishaps, her track record is under fire. Her claims of economic growth and the disconnect between rising MP salaries and public struggles only add fuel to the fire. But this isn't just about one politician, it's about trust in leadership. Reeves may try to move past this, but the bigger question remains: can politicians be held accountable, or will this be forgotten? If you enjoyed, leave a like and subscribe to our channel. You can watch more videos from us here.